Hey everybody, it's Party Lead here with another episode of Total Breakdown. This is a battle that goes right down to the wire from the Warhammer Fantasy League, where we'll see Daman and Clashclan Soothsayer face off as Wood Elves and Argwylon. For updates and live casts from the tournament, make sure you follow the link in the description down below. We begin, of course, with talk of composition and deployment, and in this mirror match, it is fascinating to see just how different the approaches are. The yellow Wood Elves are led by a Glade Lord atop a horse. Alongside her, you can see we've got two units of Wild Riders over here alongside these War Dancers. There's also a Branch Wraith providing some support in melee and with magic when and if possible, while up front we have two units of Eternal Guard with shields protected from that range support from the enemy, and also these Dryads over here checkerboarding alongside the Eternal Guard with shields, and these guys are able to cause some magical damage and have a bit of physical resistance of their own. Then on either flank we have these War Dancers over here and two of them off to the right over here, while at the back two units of Wild Riders are able to push through and charge and cause some damage or go chasing after archers or come in for rear charges. Whatever opportunity presents itself, they will be there for. On the other side of the field, you can see we have a very different build over here, largely based off range support. In charge, a Glade Lord atop a horse, so similar over there, and at the back we have the Spellslinger of Life floating on the field, trying to provide that magical support. The front line consists of these units of Eternal Guard with shields, again spread apart, so they're able to engage from multiple directions wherever the enemy might come towards this very large range contingent. We have Glade Guard with Hagbane Tip over here and over here, slowing down the enemy flanking opportunities as they come in for charges with their Wild Riders potentially. In the center we have a regular unit of Glade Guard, and then we also have these four units of Deep Wood Scouts, so a lot of range capabilities here. And then all the way at the back we have two units of Wild Riders with shields over here, and another unit of Wild Riders with shields over here. And these guys have shields, so they will be protected from ranged fire, which unfortunately the other side of the field does not have outside of the Glade Lord. Now, very, very different builds over here. As you can see, I will be referring to these armies as the Yellow Elves and the Red Elves, or some variant of that. With all that said and done, let's see how it all breaks down. Both armies obviously pushing into formation, pushing into an engagement pattern over here. You can see off to the side these Wild Riders have crept forward alongside the Glade Lord and the War Dancers, staying hidden in the trees, looking for an opportunity to dive in from that flank, because all of these range units are going to be very threatening and they need to be taken care of nice and early. And you can see these Wild Riders here getting very aggressive nice and early here, pushing forward, trying to get damage done, while off in the right over here, some shots coming in already, getting some damage into these War Dancers. They are a very threatening unit, of course. You want to take care of those War Dancers as quickly as possible, and these Wild Riders as well pushing aggressively forward, while these Wild Riders off to the side here, pushing to the side, not realizing yet, I think, that there's a charge coming in from the side. The Glade Lord getting some shots in, and more or less right away you can see these archers are being pulled back. The Glade Guard over here turning around, or the Eternal Guard rather, turning around to absorb that charge, forcing these Wild Riders. Excellent management there, forcing these Wild Riders to turn around and make some distance from the Eternal Guard over here. Back over here, meanwhile, we get these Wild Riders hit by the Prey of Anathema, forcing them to stay stuck in position. So beautifully done there, wonderful micromanagement, and in they come for a charge after all, turning around, and these Eternal Guard giving chase here, hoping to shut these guys down, but they are able to get the charge in. Nicely done. These Wild Riders push in instead, though, try to provide some support, and these Wild Riders over here taking a wider route to try and get a nice rear charge into the Eternal Guard. Meanwhile, on the right over here, you can see we've got these Wild Riders pushing in, chasing after these Wild Riders, but unfortunately the Eternal Guard with shields are there from the Red Elves, holding the line. They're able to absorb the charge as these War Dancers push in, having eaten a fair bit of damage from all of that range support. We've got these Dryads pushing down the middle as well, and these guys have taken a fair bit of hurt too from those Deepwood Scouts from the Glade Guard as well. Still, on this left flank over here, you can see the yellow Wild Riders are having a terrible time, but in come the other unit of Wild Riders to get a nice rear charge in there, but unfortunately not much going on over there, while over here we have another Prey of Anathema going down, holding down these central Wild Riders back, so they're not able to push through this giant gap and chase after both of these units of archers. So wonderfully done there. Great defensive maneuver there as these guys pull back into safety. You can see we've got these War Dancers diving in, trying to provide some support. These Wild Riders, again, doing a lot of damage. The yellow Wild Riders falling apart. In comes the Earthblood, upgraded there to try and keep these units alive on both sides of the field here, trying to stay alive, trying to do whatever they can as these War Dancers coming for a nice rear charge into those Elves. Back here, you can see all of these range units falling back into safety as these Dryads are giving chase. These Eternal Guard, as well as these Dryads, just giving chase, trying to close the gap over here. And up front, we've got these Eternal Guards going toe-to-toe with each other, while over here off to the side, you can see these Wild Riders are having a terrible time against the Eternal Guard with shields, but the War Dancers have come in there and they're providing some decent assistance. But unfortunately, these Wild Riders that are extremely important for the Yellow Elves to shut down all of these range units, they are being taken care of and they need to pull back. We do have this unit over here, though, pushing in for another opportunity, getting a nice little charge planned over here, trying to get a nice rear charge into these Wild Riders over here. You can see the Glade Lord, they're giving up on the fight, pulling away into safety, wants to make sure that she doesn't get caught up in that situation, and all of these range units are able to turn around and keep firing away at these Dryads as they're trying to close the gap. These Wild Riders over here, able to get away, get a nice charge into the Eternal Guard over here, get a decent touch of damage in there, maybe trying to push in over here to provide some support as these Wild Riders over here continue to give chase to these Glade Guard with Hagbane Tips, but you can see these Wild Riders trying to close the gap to that Wild Rider unit over there with the Yellow Elves, trying to hold them back and prevent the charge into the ranged units back there that are forced to give up, forced to fall back and slowly turn around and fire as soon as the opportunity presents itself. On the left flank over here, you can see the red elves are having a terrible time. Both of their Wild Rider units are falling apart, while to the right over here, you can see these yellow elves have a clear path towards all of these ranged units, focusing first on these Wild Riders, hoping to drop them down. They are the fastest unit on the field for the yellow elves, hoping to take care of these guys, getting the red Wild Riders in as well to intercept and maybe get these guys to rout before they're able to close the gap. Wonderfully done there, and you can see these guys pulling back. And again, look at the glorious spread we have over here. We have a couple of these archers up front, we have a couple of them back here, and another set back here, peeling back, keeping these guys in separate layers, so as the yellow Wood Elves give chase, they are staggered as they try to close the gaps to these various collection of ranged units. Absolutely wonderful to see, and at the same time you can see over here these Wild Riders have done a good job of getting the yellow Wild Riders to rout, while the War Dancers now dive in, distracted by those Wild Riders, having to close the gap over there, but of course these guys are able to just turn around and fall back into safety. Meanwhile, over here, these yellow Wild Riders giving chase to, I think, the Glade Lord over here, while the Spellsinger of Life still very much alive, but the Glade Lord does dive in to cause a fair bit of damage and get rid of that magical support. And you can see hiding in the trees now the Wood Elves, the Red Wood Elves specifically, trying to open shots off at the Dryads over here, trying to get rid of those guys, while over here these War Dancers eating a lot of damage, falling apart under all of that range support, while these War Dancers are able to close the gap almost and do a fair bit of work. If they're able to close that gap, these Elves will have a terrible time, these Deepwood Scouts. So you can see once again trying to split up over here, trying to keep their distance and fire in from multiple angles into these War Dancers as well. A couple of volleys will drop their morale, will drop their health, and force them to leave. Meanwhile, over here you can see the Spellsinger of Life from the Red Elves is forced to pull back into safety, very low on health, very low on morale, so a dangerous situation over there, while these Wild Riders just trying to clean up what's left of what used to be the left flank over here. You can see these Eternal Guard with shields falling apart. They've got Earthblood to try and keep them alive, but it's just not doing enough. Meanwhile, over here, we've got these War Dancers turning around and pulling back for this engagement over here, trying to get away from some of that range support, I think, while the Glade Lord is over there taking care of these yellow Dryads. Meanwhile, these Wild Riders over here as well, giving chase, I think, to these War Dancers to try and shut them down once and for all, while the Prey of Anathema goes down on the Spellsinger of Life. She gets fully surrounded by these War Dancers, a terrible situation for her to be in. These Wild Riders are in there as well, so she is dying off. Great call over there, try to get rid of that supporting magic. And meanwhile, over here, these War Dancers are having a terrible time. The Glade Lord is coming in as well to provide some assistance, and these Deepwood Scouts are actually managing to survive and come out on top in melee, forcing the yellow Elves there to give up, as those Wild Riders come in for a nice, glorious charge, trying to make sure those guys give up once and for all, or I should say, those ladies give up once and for all. Over here, though, the Spellsinger of Life in a terrible situation, again, fully surrounded, that Glade Lord doing a fair bit of damage, the Wild Riders giving chase alongside these Eternal Guard, but take a look at all of that ranged fire coming in, dropping in on these Wild Riders, causing a significant amount of damage. And over here as well, you can see these guys as they're trying to close the gap, taking a fair amount of hurt, both in terms of health and in terms of attributes, with poison coming in from the Hagbane tips. These guys are slowing down, so wonderfully done there, keeping them at bay, keeping them behind, while all these shots come and take a look at these War Dancers just falling apart, while over here we have Earthblood going down, trying to keep these guys alive again, just trying to close the gap, as basically all that's left from the Red Wood Elves are all of these ranged units. But you can see over here these Eternal Guard with their shields, slowly as they change these angles to be a bit more acute, their shields won't actually help them, so they're going to start falling apart more aggressively, while these Wild Riders over here now trying to close the gap. But take a look at that glorious volley coming in from the side there, firing into the sides of these Wild Riders, and a beautiful Prey of Anathema going down, holding them in place, making sure they're not able to get the charge off into these Glade Guard with Hagbane tips. Excellent micromanagement there, excellent vision there, and you can see over here as the Eternal Guard with the shields turn around to charge in, these Wild Riders dive into these War Dancers, hoping to take care of those War Dancers, and you can see over here these Wild Riders from the Yellow Wood Elves have fallen apart, while up front over here these War Dancers as well, completely falling apart, routing, while these Dryads now tossed back by these Red Wild Riders. Wonderfully done, but unfortunately back there, those Wild Riders have been forced to give up on the fight. They have completely shattered, while here we have these Eternal Guard with shields pushing in as well, trying to take care of these Wild Riders with shields once and for all, but all of that range support coming in, trying to get rid of this giant clump of Yellow Wood Elf units. Of course, Earthblood goes down, trying to keep these guys alive, trying to resist all of that damage that's coming in, but it's doing a lot of work here, and those Hagbane tips slowing these guys down. But after all, over here, these Wild Riders were able to dive into the Glade Guard with Hagbane tips, unfortunately, not able to finish them off completely, though putting them under the influence of Prey of Anathema and just firing away at them has brought their health down to about maybe a fifth of what it was originally, or at the time. So wonderfully done nonetheless. Unfortunately, just not enough, and those Glade Guard off on the side there are forced to rout. They're right at the edge of the battlefield as well, so they're probably not going to stick around. And again, you can see here a beautiful split happening. We have some ranged units in the trees, some of them pulling out to the side over here, trying to fire as they move, trying to stop and shoot when necessary, and all the way off in the distance over here, the Glade Lord as well, trying to keep these Wild Riders at bay, but gets hit by the Prey of Anathema, and back here, that Spellsinger of Life is having a terrible time. Glade Lord from the Yellow Elves just trying to take care of that Spellsinger, make sure the Earthblood is not around to help out when it's absolutely necessary, and that's going to be very soon. As you can see, some of these Deepwood Scouts are running out of ammunition. The War Dancers diving into the Deepwood Scouts, trying to cause a fair bit of damage. The Shadow's Coil is active as well, so increasing their melee defense, maybe not entirely necessary, reducing their melee attack, slowing down how quickly they'll take care of the Deepwood Scouts, and the Deepwood Scouts are actually doing all right as a result of that. Meanwhile, over here, you can see we have these Eternal Guard with shields falling apart, while over here as well, these Dryads have completely given up on the fight. They haven't shattered just yet, but they are very close to the edge of the battlefield. A lot of that range fire coming in. They're about to give up completely, while over here as well, you can see these Eternal Guard with shields very close to the edge of the map, being chased off the edge of the map. These Deepwood Scouts as well, completely out of ammunition, so they don't have much choice. Back on the left over here, you can see we have the Red Glade Lord in a bit of a tight spot now, surrounded by these War Dancers and the Branch Wraith. And again, the Branch Wraith is capable in melee, so the Glade Lord is forced to leave that situation as the Yellow Glade Lord comes in and starts firing shots off. Meanwhile, you can see these Wild Riders over here get a nice charge into the side of these Deepwood Scouts, trying to finish those guys off. They're out of ammunition, so there's not much they can do, but in melee they are relatively capable, while you can see another rout going on over there as these units now turn around and decide to get engaged against this giant clump, the only remaining clump, rather, I should say, of the Yellow Elf units. The Branch Wraith over here giving chase to these Deepwood Scouts. A little bit of focus fire going down. Maybe not the best idea. Maybe a better idea to focus in on some of these units that have more individuals, but the Glade Lord being fired upon now, trying to reduce that health, trying to get rid of that leadership. And off to the side over here, you can see these Deepwood Scouts have been completely taken care of. The Glade Lord now getting a little adventurous, trying to chase after this Yellow Glade Lord as well. Very low on ammunition. The Red Glade Lord needs to get into melee to do a bit of damage, maybe fire from a distance every once in a while, and you can see these Wild Riders now turning their attention to this giant clump. But we have the Eternal Guard with shields forming up. They're able to protect the range units that are back here from imminent doom. Back here we have another unit of Deepwood Scouts out of ammunition, however, and over here as well another unit of Deepwood Scouts out of ammunition, while in the trees over here this last unit of Deepwood Scouts without ammunition does get completely taken care of by that Branch Wraith and these Wild Riders coming in to finish the job. Beautifully done there by the Yellow Elves, and you can see the balance of power is definitely in favor of the Yellow Elves. They're doing much better. They've taken care of basically all melee capabilities from the Red Elves. The Glade Lord will manage in melee, and of course we have the Eternal Guard with shields, but there isn't much left of them. There's just a handful of them, barely like 100th of their health left. One unit, in fact, very close to giving up on the fight. A couple of stray shots from the Yellow Glade Lord, having their morale drop significantly, but keeping the Red Glade Lord nearby is a good idea. And the encouragement is going to help keep these guys fighting, but you can see morale is very low. These guys are wavering. They don't really want to stick around, and this Glade Lord as well needs to dodge some of those shots coming in from the Yellow Glade Lord over there. And you can see we have the Wild Riders alongside the Branch Wraith just creeping up the trees over here, slowly but cautiously. They're not able to see these Deepwood Scouts. They're planning just a flanking maneuver to get around these Eternal Guard up front. They're not actually able to see these Deepwood Scouts, but the Red Elves are probably relatively aware that they lost a couple units, lost vision on a couple units when they were off in the distance over there. So you can see these Deepwood Scouts are trying to stay wary, trying to keep a distance from this gap over here, and right now this Branch Wraith comes out first, maybe hoping to bait a charge so these Wild Riders can come in afterwards. Unfortunately, that bait is not taken, and you can see those Wild Riders again just shifting around, but I think they just got spotted over there, and these Deepwood Scouts now have been spotted as well. So the Branch Wraith just closing the gap as the Glade Lord continues to fire away at the Red Glade Lord. And you can see the Red Glade Lord is in a terrible situation, very low on health. Morale is kind of low as well, about 50%. And you can see these Eternal Guard continue to just stay wavering. The other Eternal Guard as well, they're steady right now, but one stray shot, one flanking maneuver will absolutely ruin their day. And you can see this giant clump of Yellow Elf units just looking for an opportunity to dive in, taking some cover in the trees, it seems like, trying to stay hidden, but unfortunately the backs of these Eternal Guard with shields are turned to all of these range units, and they see their opportunity, they fire away, get a fair bit of damage, slow them down as well because of the Hagbane tips that are left over, and a fair bit of damage done there again. Morale dropping, health dropping, but in comes Earthblood from the Branch Wraith, keeping these guys alive. Wonderfully done. And off in the distance over here, you can see we have these War Dancers as well, just giving up completely on the battle, running all the way to the edge of the map. Thought I'd point them out because you can see them on the minimap, but up front over here again, getting a bit more aggressive. I think the Elves once more looking for an opportunity to dive in. They can't just sit back and take those shots. Obviously, they have to be a bit more aggressive, and you can see the Yellow Glade Lord focusing in on the Red Glade Lord, trying to take care of that leadership and get it to finally drop, especially for these frontline units. In comes some shots from these Deepwood Scouts and the Glade Guard with Hagbane tips. A beautiful prey of Anathema once more slowing down the Wild Riders, but in comes the Glade Lord, able to dive in rather aggressively, while the Deepwood Scouts and over here the Eternal Guard with shields as well turn around to give chase to that Glade Lord. If they can pin the Glade Lord down and shut her down and remove her, the Red Elves still stand a chance, but the Branch Wraith is at full health as well, and you can see the balance of power. The Red Elves are basically, well, that's basically the end of the battle for them, but you can see back here these Wild Riders have been shot up. They've taken a lot of damage. Prey of Anathema excellently used there, pinning them in place, getting them to rout and give up on the fight. And up front over here as well, you can see now these Deepwood Scouts are pulling away, while the unit of Glade Guard with Hagbane tips getting one last beautiful beautiful volley into these Eternal Guard with shields. A nice set of shots comes in from the Glade Guard off in the distance over here as well, and the Eternal Guard are, well, they're persistent. They dive right into the Glade Guard with Hagbane tips. They do a fair bit of damage, but they are eating a lot of hurt as well, especially to their morale with all of those shots coming in. A rear charge from these Deepwood Scouts as well. Beautifully played there. Wonderfully done. Those Eternal Guard with shields are wavering. They're going to give up on the fight, while in the center over here you can see the Red Glade Lord has decided to dive into the Yellow Glade Lord, trying to cause a fair bit of damage, but now having to turn around as the Yellow Glade Lord gives chase to the Red Glade Lord, who is significantly lower in health, but has some ammunition left. Meanwhile, turning around and diving back into these Deepwood Scouts as all of these ranged units now either dive into melee or fire away at the Glade Lord again, hoping to drop enemy leadership, hoping to take care of that Yellow Glade Lord, and ultimately hope that the Branch Wraith gives up as a result. But the Branch Wraith is, of course, a character as well, is able to encourage units around if necessary, is able to fight in melee as well. So this is a very tough spot, as we have another Eternal Guard with shield unit just completely shattering there, not willing to stick around and fight. But you can see a fair bit of damage being done to the Glade Lord over here. Some really wonderful work by the Glade Guard with Hagbane tips over here, firing away. Now these guys as well getting involved, lowering health significantly. You can see the zigzagging over there. Definitely watches Game of Thrones, definitely understands the concept of dodging arrows over there, trying to stay alive, but unfortunately it's just far too little, taking a significant amount of damage. Health is dropped just below 50% now, and again, just turning around, trying to get some charges in, I think, trying to cause some damage wherever possible, reduce morale among these Deepwood Scouts if possible, and off in the distance, you can see we do have these guys returning to the fray, able to pull back into the fight over here, while again, the Yellow Glade Lord just looking for an opportunity to cause some damage both to health and morale, and the Red Glade Lord now diving in to get some nice melee damage in, out of ammunition finally. The Branch Wraith dives in as well, but you can see all of these archers are diving in from the Elves, right into melee, not giving a damn about their lives. It's for the glory of the Wood Elves, of course, here, and the range fire coming in from these Glade Guards still, focusing in on the Glade Lord over here, the Yellow Glade Lord, of course, trying to get some damage done, trying to get rid of leadership, and you can see down goes the Yellow Glade Lord's leadership. She is not willing to stick around and fight anymore. She's just wavering, just barely hanging on. That charge from the Red Glade Lord as well helped significantly, but the Branch Wraith is doing a lot of work in this giant clump, just waving her branches around, getting a fair bit of damage done, and you can see this Red Glade Lord has to be very careful moving around when she's taking too much damage to make sure that she doesn't die off or lose her morale completely. And you can see in the center here, the Yellow Glade Lord has broken, given up on the fight, trying to get out of this clump, trying to stay alive, and the balance of power, though, is still in favor of the Yellow Elves. Of course, that Branch Wraith can do a lot of work, and if that Glade Lord is able to get away, she can come back, and she will, of course, not cause as much of a morale reduction as if she were to die. You can see all of these units as a result of that chasing after the Glade Lord, and then ultimately deciding to chase after the Branch Wraith instead, as these Glade Guard run out of ammunition almost. But back here, wonderfully done by the Red Glade Lord, making sure that the Yellow Glade Lord drops dead, and that does a number on the Branch Wraith's leadership over here. You can see it's dropping to about 50%. She gets fully surrounded as well, so morale is going to drop as well with all those rear charges happening, and if they can get the Branch Wraith to start losing the battle, it'll make a huge difference. In come some range shots as well, and that's going to do a fair bit of damage to morale as well, fair bit of damage to health as well, of course. And over here you can see this Glade Lord still not confidently able to dive in, needs to stay close to keep that encouragement active, needs to stay close to be able to dive in if necessary, but it is very risky. Of course, the Branch Wraith can finish her off if push comes to shove, as I mentioned earlier as well. But you can see over here the Branch Wraith is very low on health, very low on morale. The Red Elves may have turned this battle over, and you can see these Glade Guard back here still eager to fire what's left of their ammunition. Just a couple of stray shots left, perhaps, with the Branch Wraith doing so much work. The Glade Lord here from the Red Elves diving in, hoping to get some work in, unfortunately slowed down by this mob of elf archers, these Deepwood Scouts and these Glade Guards who don't have any ammunition. And there you see the Glade Lord there, now giving up on the fight, having to turn around and leave broken, causing a lot of morale damage across the field here for the Red Elves. That was a terrible decision. That Glade Lord might not be coming back, and the Branch Wraith now sort of soloing this one-woman army over here, breaking these elves one at a time, dropping their health, dropping their will to fight, but at the same time very low on health and morale herself as well, wavering currently. And you can see some of these Glade Guard here are winning their battle, and that makes a huge difference to morale. Now that the Branch Wraith is losing her battle, she's going to have her morale reduced significantly. These guys just looking for an opportunity to shoot, but ultimately it looks like it won't be necessary as health continues to drop, as morale continues to drop. That Branch Wraith is giving up on the fight and decides to break and leave. Now the balance of power and the rock, paper, scissors mechanics of the game were all thrown out the window in this battle, as the Wood Elves of Argwylon managed to pull back against impossible odds and come out on top against a faster, more mobile, more melee-capable army with nothing but a Glade Lord and a bunch of ammo-free archers. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn some amazing techniques, and it's always nice to highlight some great battles from the community. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.